The sky went dark in the middle of the day. The crowd grew quiet as the sound of hammering faded. A man hung on a wooden cross, bleeding and struggling to breathe. This was the moment when everything could have changed. Many people do not realize how close the world came to a different ending. Jesus was not weak on that cross. He was not powerless. He had said before that he could call for help if he wanted, help that no army on earth could stop. I want you to imagine that moment with me, not as a sermon, not as a lesson forced on you, but as a story, a real moment in history where one choice held the fate of the world. Jesus had already been betrayed. One of his closest friends had sold him for silver. Another had denied knowing him. The rest had run away in fear. He stood alone before religious leaders and Roman soldiers. The trial was rushed. The charges were false. The crowd that once followed him now shouted for his death. Pilate knew he was innocent, yet fear of unrest pushed him to allow the execution. Jesus was beaten. He was mocked. A crown of thorns was pressed into his head. Soldiers laughed as blood ran down his face. Still, he did not fight back. Then they led him to the place of execution. He carried the cross until his body gave out. Another man was forced to help. Women wept along the road. Jesus spoke to them even in pain. When they reached the hill, they nailed him to the wood. The sound of metal striking flesh echoed through the air. The cross was lifted. Gravity pulled against his wounded body. Breathing became slow and painful. Above him was a sign meant to mock him. It named him as king. Soldiers cast lots for his clothes. Religious leaders watched with satisfaction. Yet something unseen stood close by. Heaven was not silent. Angels watched from beyond human sight. They had followed him since his birth. They had served him in the wilderness. Scripture tells us that Jesus once said he could call on 12 legions of angels. A legion was thousands strong. 72,000 angels was not an empty number. It was power beyond imagination. It was instant victory. So now imagine this moment. Imagine Jesus lifting his eyes. Imagine him choosing to call for help. Imagine him giving the command. The ground would have trembled first. Not from fear, but from authority. The sky would have torn open like a curtain. Light brighter than the sun would have poured through. Angels would have descended like fire, not gentle messengers, but warriors shaped by the presence of God. Their arrival would have shaken every soul nearby. The Roman soldiers would have dropped their weapons. Some would have fallen to their knees. Others would have tried to run. No human strength could stand in that moment. The cross would not have held him anymore. Chains and nails would have meant nothing. Jesus would have been taken down in an instant. Blood would still mark his body, but pain would no longer rule the scene. Judgment would have followed quickly. The leaders who demanded his death would face truth. Pilate would stand exposed in his fear. The crowd would realize what they had done. Jerusalem itself might not have survived and changed. History shows that cities judged by divine power were not spared. The temple could have fallen that very day. Rome would have heard and trembled. The world would have learned who Jesus truly was through fear, through force, through overwhelming power. Faith would no longer be a choice. It would be submission. But here is where everything changes. That did not happen. The angels did not come. The sky stayed dark. The cross stayed standing. Jesus stayed. He stayed in pain. He stayed in shame. He stayed in silence. Why would someone with that kind of power choose not to use it? Why would someone who could end suffering allow it to continue? This is the heart of the story. Jesus did not come to conquer by force. He came to rescue by sacrifice. Calling the angels would have saved his life, but it would have cost the world its hope. If the angels had come, the cross would have ended early. Sin would not have been paid for. Death would not have been defeated. Humanity would remain broken. The people watching that day did not understand this. They thought strength meant survival. They thought victory meant escape. But Jesus showed a different kind of power. As he hung there, he spoke words of forgiveness. He prayed for the people hurting him. He cared for his mother. He promised hope to a dying man beside him. These are not the actions of weakness. These are the actions of control. Only someone fully secure in his purpose could endure that moment. The darkness that covered the land was not random. It was creation reacting to its creator. The earth shook when he breathed his last. The temple curtain tore from top to bottom. That curtain separated people from God. No human hand could tear it that way. It was a sign. Access had been opened. The sacrifice was complete. If angels had come, fear would rule faith. People would obey because they had no choice. But love requires freedom. Forgiveness requires sacrifice. 3 days later, something even greater happened. The grave could not hold him. No angels needed to rescue him then. Death itself stepped aside. The resurrection proved what the cross achieved. Sin was defeated. Hope was restored. Life was offered freely. Think about the people who followed him after. They were not forced. They were changed. They believed because they saw love win. The message spread quietly at first. No armies marched. No cities burned. Yet the world shifted forever. Rome eventually fell. Empires rose and collapsed. But the story of a man who chose the cross over power remained. If Jesus had called the angels, history would remember fear. Instead, it remembers grace. Instead, it remembers mercy. This story matters today because we face the same choice. We want quick rescue. We want power to end pain. We want force instead of patience. But the cross teaches us something harder. Sometimes love looks like endurance. Sometimes victory looks like loss. Sometimes the greatest strength is restraint. Jesus did not avoid suffering. He transformed it. He did not destroy his enemies. He forgave them. The angels stood ready. Heaven was prepared. Yet love chose the harder road. And because of that choice, hope exists. Forgiveness is possible. New life is offered. That is what would have happened if the angels came. Judgment would have fallen. Fear would have ruled. The story would have ended too soon. Instead, the cross stood, the sacrifice was made, and the world was changed forever. That is not weakness. That is love at its strongest.